The Prima Bundle, as you see here, is currently the lowest rung in Asetek Simsports lineup, in the same way that the Cayman is the lowest rung Porsche. It's still a fair bit of money, so you'll expect a fair bit of kit. In this video, I'll paint a picture of what it's like, whether it's good value, who this bundle is best suited to, and who it is not. I'll be upfront, I am super impressed overall. I initially dismissed Asetek when they first appeared on the scene, as I fell on the wrong side of the fence regarding the styling. I wasn't a fan. Turns out, it's beautiful on the inside. There is clearly a lot of pride poured in, and it feels complete and well executed. However, there are certainly things you must know about before you buy. Asetek made a couple of choices that deviate from the norm that may affect your decision. Let's look. Before we get into it, important information for you as the viewer. Asetek has provided all the equipment seen here free for review. However, I approached them due to my interest in Asetek, and they have no say in what I say. I hope you'll find this to be evidently fair and informative. Watch the entire video through first, but if you do make the decision to buy, then you can save 5% off the official Asetek sites using the discount code DannyLee. Links and info are in the description below, and thanks for giving them a look. A text-based version of this video is also linked there. First up, a quick summary of all the main points covered. All of the components feel solid, serious and mature. They look better in person than the photos convey, in my opinion. The 12Nm wheelbase is super strong and smooth, very much grown adult grade. The steering wheel is well sized with loads of onboard controls and customizable lighting, but no dual clutch pedals, and nor can they be added to the Prima model. The pedals are well built and great to drive, but are designed in a way that requires a mounting angle that some cockpits might struggle with. Definitely something you need to know, so more on this later. The Asetek software is super slick, very friendly with easy force feedback tuning. In general, the bundle is priced right. You will feel like you're getting what you paid for, and the quality does feel high. It's more complete and refined than I'd taken it for at first glance, and Asetek themselves seem to be taking this really seriously. The Prima Bundle features a wheelbase, wheel and pedals in individual boxes. They're available for sale individually, but if you buy them individually it amounts to about €1,300, whereas the bundle is 1135, so there is a big difference doing it like that. At present, Asetek is only for PC, no console support, though they have expressed an intention to move into console before, so we'll see. The wheelbase, the heart of the experience, produces 12Nm of torque. That means force feedback, which is about 5 times the power of the Logitech G923 and 3 times the power of the Thrustmaster T300, two of the most common wheel setups people tend to be using before they make a big upgrade to something like this. There's much more to it than just raw force numbers. The Prima is a direct drive wheelbase which is lightning fast, but that Newton meter power figure is the most simplistic way to illustrate how big a jump it is. It's really strong and fully adult grade. No matter who you are, this is no toy and will transform what you thought racing games and simulators were capable of being. The usual reaction of people going from entry level to something like this is one of shock and joy, as it should be for what you're paying, but believe me when I say it's a whole new world. It's quite a long and slender wheelbase, which is helpful for monitor positioning. It looks very race spec with the Asetek branding prominently visible. It comes with a remote power button, which is very important, as curiously, the wheelbase itself has no onboard power switch. This outboard button is required to bring the base to life, so don't lose it or damage it, or you'll need to get a replacement in order to turn the base on at all. An unusual decision. The Prima Formula steering wheel is a 290mm diameter wheel with customizable rev lights, 12 standard buttons, 3 dials with customizable lighting, shifter paddles, 2 thumb encoders and 2 multi-way switches. That's a total that's slightly above par. The more expensive Forte wheel may have more switchgear, more lights and ability to equip dual clutch paddles, but the overall platform is actually the same. Same casing, same quick release, same shape, same grips, same shifters. Although you can see evidence of a reduced spec, you still get an awful lot. Its only Achilles heel is that you can't upgrade it with dual clutch paddles, so if they are a must for you, bear that in mind, you'll be needing a Forte. The Prima pedals feature a throttle and brake with adjustable throw and resting angles, as well as an adjustable brake cylinder with swappable internals to modify the pedal softness and behaviour underfoot. A clutch add-on is available, but I'm not in possession of that right now. The pedals are quite distinct in style, so you can make up half your mind with your eyeballs alone, but the quality, proportions and build is very good. As hardy as it is overall, there are a couple of vulnerable looking wires here and there. The USB connects at an angle that could spell curtains if something catches a wire wrong, so be careful. The throttle and brake can't be horizontally adjusted or spaced further apart on this model, but you can move the pedal plates across a little bit using the alternative bolt holes, so there is at least that. Much like the steering wheel, you're still getting a lot of what the more expensive Forte gives you, many of the same components, same materials, same underlying platform, same overall aesthetic. You get the same brake cylinder as the Forte, you just don't get the LED strip on the heel plate or the adjustable throttle tensioner, and the heel plate hasn't been given a haircut to expose the bare aluminium. Long story short, it's mostly a cosmetic gap between the La Prima and Forte. If you don't really care about that, then you save money by opting for the La Prima spec. This bundle is clearly aimed at those who are really intrigued by an Asetek Simsports setup but don't want to pay for perceived optional extras that come on the Forte and Invicta. This is for those who just want to buy the important bits. In that sense, the La Prima is spot on. Everything that is here feels high quality because the cost saving doesn't come from reducing the standard of the components, it comes from outright removing them. This is a bundle that leaves out a lot of the stuff that you just won't miss until you're much further along, and should that day arrive, if there's one thing Asetek has gotten excited about, it's upgrade kits. Being able to spec up your equipment so you don't have to sell it on first and buy a whole new setup is helpful. So if you are concerned about upgradability, then you're probably best covered here. I can't see any other manufacturer doing this to this extent. A kit to upgrade the La Prima wheelbase to the Forte's 80Nm is in the pipeline. With the unboxing done, the next thing to do is mount it all up. This is where any of the pain and strife with an Asetek setup is concentrated, so pay close attention. The La Prima wheelbase has captive T-nuts on the underside to bolt it from underneath, but the spacing and sizing doesn't piggyback any other manufacturers, so you'll either need to buy one of Asetek's mounts, or if you have the know-how, you could drill your own holes according to the schematic. Future cockpits on sale might start accommodating Asetek fully, but as of this video's recording date, you're likely to need a mount or need a drill. I've opted to start off with the mount that comes across as the most ordinary, the wheelbase mount with tilt. As you can see, I've fitted this directly to the wheel deck atop of this Pro Simrig PSR3 using the same holes as per my Fanatec base, meaning this mount should be compatible with most wheel decks and wheel plates. You might need a few additional nuts and bolts at hand to accommodate sizing variations in your own rig, but the end result is a fairly low-key solution which, true to its name, can be tilted. It also doubles up as a sandwich type mount if that's what you're all about. At €75, it's not exactly cheap, but there are definitely worse offenders out there if you ask me. The bottom mount is a spreader plate designed for profile rigs which have a solid crossbeam, so if your cockpit has a solid length of profile which itself can be tilted, then this is the one for you. It's the cheapest and simplest mount option at €60, feels like a lot for a flat steel plate, but the price is the price. All these cutouts probably triple the production cost. You can get table clamps that go with this mount, but if you're mad enough to use an Asetek base on a table, you better hope it wasn't from IKEA. The front mount is the most expensive option at €125. This mount fits onto any profile type rig and completely replaces whatever wheel deck or crossbeam solution you may already have, whilst also offering a power button pride of place. An emergency stop button would sit the other side, but the La Prima doesn't utilise one. Because of this wholesale conversion of our wheel support, installation is somewhat involved. I think this will take you 30 minutes to get through at least. You'll need a Torx screwdriver to undo the power button casing, and a small screw of a very particular size to affix the power button backing cover, both of which weren't found in the kit I received, and both of which sent me rummaging through my garage and man drawers to find them. It wasted a lot of time. I thought this was a bit odd, so I asked if these bits were missing on purpose, and as it turns out, the kit doesn't include a Torx bit, but it was supposed to include the screws, so hopefully you shouldn't have that same problem. They were just missing from the kit in my case. Although the front mount takes an above average tinkering to install, it's not as complicated as I'd expected, and the result is actually quite pretty. It felt worth the effort and adds a bit of personality. So that's the wheelbase mounting covered, but I think pedal mounting is actually far more important to tell you about, so bear with me here, I do have a point. The pedals are mounted via pre-machined holes in the base. If you have a profile based pedal tray like this, then you'll have no trouble. If you have a steel plate pedal tray, then there's a chance you might have to modify your plate and drill some holes. That's fairly standard stuff, especially for newer manufacturers. What's not standard, at least to me, is the aggressive angle that Asetek chose to go with for their pedals, which makes them a bit fussy about what cockpit or rig you're putting them on. Compare the angle of the La Primas to the Fanatec CSL Elite V2s, for example. You can see that the resting angle is very different. What's my point here? Well, the point is that most low to mid-range cockpits are designed with this angle of attack in mind, not this. With the lower cost La Prima bundle in particular, I am certain there'll be some overlap of people that buy this bundle and discover the hard way that they can't get their pedals positioned correctly if their cockpit only has limited adjustability. If your pedal tray can be manoeuvred in a way that brings it in line with your hips, either through height or angle, then you should be fine. But if you can't align your pedal tray to point basically towards your seat, then you might find that there's a problem getting the pedals to line up with the soles of your feet in a comfortable way. Only the La Prima pedals have ever forced me to tilt my pedal tray away from me in order for the pedal faces to be angled comfortably. I'm just fortunate this rig is able to do that. Asetek's choices are theirs alone to make, and they've done it with full intent. It's not a miscalculation. The philosophy is to encourage as close to a 90-degree angle of attack on the pedals as possible, because in their view this is how real race cars are. Therefore, the pedals are designed to enforce a seating position that replicates it. I agree with the message. You will perform better if you have a good seating posture where the pedals are as level and in line with your seat as possible. But I don't think it would have compromised Asetek's mission to allow maybe even just the pedal faces to be angle adjustable, just to cover those who buy this equipment, bolt it all up and discover that they're caught short with the pedal angle. I wouldn't put it past them to solve this with some form of accessory further down the line, given the other things they've already addressed. So there we go, that's mounting. I did say this was the area where any pain and friction might be found, so let's move on and get to the good stuff. First time setup is super simple, 15 minutes maximum. Download and install Asetek's Race Hub software on your PC, turn on the bass using the power button, enjoy the little ditty, and follow the guidance. There are bound to be some firmware updates to apply, but this was drama free. The slickness of the software overall inspires confidence. It's within here that you can adjust force feedback options, pedal calibration and curves, wheel lighting, dial modes, and so on. There's a fair bit of stuff to tweak, but nothing seems too advanced or daunting. It feels simplified and minimalistic, but all the usual stuff is here. I always begin my exploration of new hardware in iRacing. It's what I know best. The first thing I notice is how smooth and clear the wheelbase feels in hand. It's something I've heard mentioned by others, but I can concur. It's the purest feeling one that I've used yet. That ultimately doesn't matter a whole lot when there's a ton of feedback going on, but it's an observation of what many perceive as a mark of quality nonetheless. I was quickly able to dial my force feedback settings into how I like them, which isn't hard because my settings for iRacing are basically just all force and no friction. I happen to like the way the feedback is served up by the game as it comes. The sensation and feedback flavour are very similar to the Fanatec Clubsport DD and Moser R12. In my opinion, there's nothing major that you can tangibly feel that separates them too much. The La Prima feels the smoothest, but all three can punch fast and hard. I'm already many races in with the La Prima. The most effective statement I can provide is that I'm very happy using it. It gets my seal of this wheelbase drives as I expect it. Not as catchy as a seal of approval, but it's pretty clear about what I truly mean. In Assetto Corsa Competizione, a very different force feedback experience, I was able to dial in my settings and attain a good feel. Once tweaked to my preferences, the drive is excellent, very strong and purposeful, and does a great job of transporting me inside the tough GT cars on screen. ACC's sawtooth rumble strips and concrete curbs are conveyed perfectly. The way to tell you've got a representative picture of force feedback within ACC is if you feel like you need a bit of peace and quiet afterwards. ACC is a brash, harsh simulator with an awful lot going on at the wheel. You'll find a link to my ACC settings in the description also. Power-wise, the 12 Nm of a La Prima is a lot, particularly if this is your big upgrade from something like a G923 or T300. Get ready, it's an entirely new world. It's hard to overstate how much more electrifying and addictive sim racing becomes when you step up to something like this. Although the Asetek Forte and Invicta models pack more force and responsiveness at 18 and 27 Nm respectively, They are extremely powerful units with more force than the majority of people will ever put to valid use. The Prima is all about paying only for what you're going to need, and that definitely applies here. At 12 Newton meters, this is what I consider to be the sweet spot in terms of strength versus cost. I find that my feedback settings are pushing it to around maybe 90 to 95% of what it can do, which doesn't leave much more headroom, but I don't need any more. Like eating a pizza, but being too full to finish the last bite. Yeah, it might have been close, but you're still stuffed, so what more do you want? If you find yourself looking further up the scale than this, then you will be transcending because of that upgrade itch you need to scratch, which is still a very good reason, but it won't be because you thought the Prima isn't good enough. It's an excellent force feedback experience that makes me feel confident of its quality and life expectancy. The throttle and brake are also very good. I found them to be intuitive to work with. Once mounting them correctly is overcome, you have yourself a pedal set that feels upmarket. This sounds silly, but I love the solid metallic tap I feel through my shoes when they meet the pedal face. It's a physical cue that I first came to appreciate with my Husingveld sprints. The brake pedal is stiff with the fitted elastomer, but you do get an alternative softer elastomer included in the kit, which I've taken to using. It's still on the firm side, but has a definite squish to it. I believe strongly in shoes, and clearly so does Asetek, so much so they sell their own brand of them, but yes, these pedals are best experienced with footwear due to the high resistance of a brake pedal. An accessory kit of elastomers is available that broadens the softness scale, but I don't have them to test. You won't need them unless you know you like a softer pedal. The throttle is on the lighter side in terms of resistance. There's no way to adjust this tension on the Prima as it lacks a tensioner. You can add one as part of a Forte upgrade kit, but it's not exactly cheap. However, it's still a perfectly normal throttle pedal with a slightly higher resistance than the CSL Elite V2s I've come from. I highlight that it's on the lighter side because some of you might want to know. The brake cylinder system is called MLCPC, or Mechanical Load Cell Powered Cylinder. This doesn't work like your average load cell pedal, and for that Asetek caught a bit of flack for the unusual approach back when it was first seen, but I'm not much of a purist. Personally, I don't really care how something works, only that it does, and these do. The pedal translates the pressure I put into the footplate into measured braking, just like any other load cell brake I've used does, and although it achieves it in a wacky way inside that cylinder, I nonetheless found it to be very smooth and modulatable, requiring no adjustment of myself. If I wasn't around to see the initial flurry of discussion the MLCPC system prompted when it first appeared, I'd probably be none the wiser. Watching my telemetry back, I can see some lovely examples of very smooth ramping down of a brake as I trail into corners, so although I approve of it by feeling alone, the proof is right there in the pudding. Attaching the steering wheel to the wheelbase is very slick and simple, released in turn by pulling the rather oversized and rather orange tab. All parts that contact each other in Asetek's quick release are metal, and I find there to be zero dither, play or uncertainty in the system. It's effective. The pins are the only vulnerable element I can see, but it would take a clumsy accident while they're exposed for any consequences to come of it. That did nearly happen though. I almost mashed them whilst fitting the wheelbase into the front mount, so be careful. Allow me to interrupt myself here with an update because I have become a practical example of my own warning. That little ding you just saw right there actually did damage one of the pins, though I didn't notice at first because the wheel still worked. Asetek sent me a spare part to replace them, which you can buy on a website, but it would have cost me €51 including shipping and then tax on top when it got here. Quite a hit for such a small part. It's not Asetek's fault I was clumsy, and I'm not blaming them, but these pins are too frail to be open to the elements when nothing's attached. I would urge them to head back to the drawing board on this one and come up with something a bit more idiot resilient and knock proof so that they don't turn into regular support ticket generators. Let's be honest, if Fanatec used this design, then by sheer force of numbers you'd see broken pins turning up online every day. Asetek's design may be elegant, but it is brittle, so again, don't be an idiot like me, be careful. The handles are on the somewhat slender side. Clearly enough people have fed this back to Asetek to prompt them to make XL sized handles available. Though they're an optional accessory, not a choice that you can make upon order unless you just add them in. Personally, the standard grips are fine for me. They are a bit slippery when brand new, but they do tack up and grip better after a few uses once you've put down your own layer of sweat and filth. or just use gloves like Asetek wants you to. The paddle shifters are super positive with a short travel, very satisfying to pop up the gears with. I do like these. They're plastic rather than carbon or metal, but of good quality and are the exact same as found on the higher tier Forte wheel. The onboard rev lights are really bright and expressive with nice colours to choose from and adjustable behaviours, with pit limiter indication as well. The backlit dials in the centre of the wheel are also really nice to look at and use. All of the lighting is brightness adjustable. The wheel can be instructed to do a soft light show when idle. Pretty nice. The dials, encoders and switchgear are on par in terms of feel, not cheap but not luxury either. The 12 buttons on board are a little on the smaller side and have no labelling present on them, nor are any stickers or labels included, so they're all just kind of sitting there, nameless. This is maybe the one single element of the Prima kit that feels like they actually forgot something. I've definitely had to rack my brains to remember exactly which button I've assigned to my pit limiter a couple of times. And as they're all quite close to each other and small in size, there's potential for a mistap. Between the wheelbase, the wheel and the pedals, I think it's the wheel that feels like it has the most room for improvement and might undergo the most changes if and when Asetek heads into its second wave somewhere down the line. It's essentially the face of Asetek's lineup, but it didn't win hearts and minds. That's just down to taste, and you don't need me to tell you if you like it or not. You can make your own mind up just by looking. However, whilst the steering wheel looks a little bit awkward, it could always be worse, so let's not kid ourselves. This is pretty good for a first crack at it. I just needed to give it a chance and get to know the guy. If you have a third-party wheel in mind that you want to use, you'll need to buy the Invicta Quick Release kit to do so. But it does work very well, and the integrated USB connector is very considerate, making wired wheels effectively wire-free, or at least dangly wire-free. This is a really good quick release kit, and the shaft extensions are just the icing on the cake. If you didn't know Asetek Simsports were relatively new to the scene, looking at this kit and using it for yourself, you'd think they've been around for many years, and I think there's a good reason for this. The Simsports subdivision is quite clearly a passion project for this man, Andre Eriksson. He's a CEO/founder of Asetek, yet he's in almost every product demonstration video, including this one, where at one point he actually says the brake pedal can sense if you fart on it. No, really.
So there's 4,000 points in 1 millimeter of travel. It can sense it if I fart on it.
Now that is a marketing metric that I've never come across before. Given that Asetek itself is a massive company of which he is head of, the Simsports division probably has a very healthy budget and the undivided attention of a decision maker. It's not surprising that they've come in fairly strong out of nowhere. Console support is a target of theirs, and if they carry this momentum on, I actually believe they could do it. Whenever I review something, I look for any reasons not to buy, whether it's a quirk with the equipment or the company itself. What reasons might there be not to buy the Prima? The biggest by far is that pedal design. They work well and are built well, but they demand a rig that can position them correctly, or they just won't sit right for you. It's not a question of quality, but a question of your personal circumstance. There are other ecosystems with friendlier pedals that are more accommodating of lower budget rigs. This could be the difference between keeping the rig you've got or having to spend money on a new one. Apart from this, there's no hidden surprises waiting for you that I can identify so far. The Asetek ecosystem seems to be expanding at a good rate, with upgrades and alternatives, customer support seems to be doing their job, and fellow owners seem largely content. Obviously, if any owners are out there, your experiences are really valuable here, so if you've ever dealt with or used Asetek Simsports equipment for a short or long period, let people know in the comments, as your voices are super important for people to hear, including me. So my final summary. Whilst the design wasn't to everyone's taste initially, including mine, I can't argue with the quality and completeness of the equipment now I've actually tried it for myself. The Prima makes me feel like I've been welcomed into a promising ecosystem, so I'm pretty confident you'll experience that same thing. Asetek is now a name I'm going to be watching a lot more closely. So long as you pay attention to the mounting considerations with the wheelbase and pedals, I can't see any reason for disappointment with the kit overall. Comparing it to other ecosystems I've experienced with, in my opinion, the fit and finish is definitely superior to Moser's, and from my observation, the customer service has so far kept a much cleaner sheet than Fanatek's. There are other brands I'm yet still to explore, but the Prima has impressed me, and I would feel no hesitation recommending it to those looking to step up into serious sim racing. It passed my tests confidently. That's it for now. I hope this video was useful to you. If so, a like and subscribe goes a long way in letting me know, and check out my other equipment reviews and sim racing guides as well. Also feel free to ask questions in the comments, I'll do my best to answer each one. Use my discount code DannyLee to knock 5% off the Asetek Simsports site. Check the description for a bunch of relevant info as well. And cheers again.